This week on the CEO desk, we speak to Rachel Balsham, the Managing Director for Southern and East Africa at Onafriq. MFS Africa has rebranded to Onafriq, and today we'll know all about it.
Asante sana, thank you for having me. I'm Rachel Balsham. I'm the Managing Director for Southern and East Africa at Onafriq.
So my first question will be a brief description about Onafriq.
Great. So Onafriq is an omni-channel, multi-channel digital payments platform for African consumers to connect to each other and to the rest of the world. And as well as enabling African businesses to connect to African consumers and consumers elsewhere in the rest of the world.
What was the motivation behind renaming MFS Africa to Onafriq?
That's a great question. So MFS Africa stands for Mobile Financial Services Africa, and indeed our early days were very much focused on mobile money. As you know, obviously in Kenya, M-Pesa is a very well-known success story of mobile money, and MFS Africa in its early days connected to mobile money to enable cross-border interoperability across the continent and to connect the diaspora into mobile wallets on the continent. As we grew, however, our offering matured and grew past a mobile wallet-centric approach. So in addition to mobile money partners, we also connect to cards, to banks, to cash pickup networks, and to a wide variety of stores of value and business types and use cases. So mobile financial services became a little bit limiting as a descriptor. And we've also, in recent years, expanded our reach into the United States by acquiring a company called GTP based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And it turned out that in the United States, another company has the trademark for MFS. It's a very different type of company that operates in Massachusetts. And so we decided that there was an opportunity to bring all of our offerings under the same umbrella, under the same brand, and really to unite the story of our varied and evolving offering.
How does this rebranding align with the company's vision?
I think it aligns perfectly. The name comes from Ona, which it comes from the Yoruba word for path. However, of course, in Swahili it means to see, and I really like that. And of course, Afrique is the French form for Africa, so it's paths to Africa, paths through Africa, and of course a way to see Africa. We have always been Afrocentric in our approach and in our values and our vision, and our mission has been really to enable anyone in the world to transact with anyone. You know, one of our kind of guiding principles is where you are should not limit what you can do. And you know, somebody who has 100 pounds worth of value on an HSBC card sitting in London actually has vastly more has an ability to make vastly more transactions than somebody with the same amount of value in Malawi and Kwacha on an Airtel Malawi wallet. That is the imbalance we're trying to correct. That same person with that same amount of value should not actually be limited by where they're sitting in the world or what type of store of value they have in terms of what they're able to do with those funds. So Onafriq really captures those pathways that we're forging and the Afrocentricity of our approach.
Very interesting, and I'm very sure you've heard about Africa Free Trade Area.
Yes.
How does or how will Onafriq contribute to the actualization of Africa Free Trade Area?
That's another great question. So the African Free Trade Area, I think, is a really important step forward in terms of integration and formalizing trade. We know, however, that trade moves across borders in Africa, whether or not there is an official trade agreement or an official trade policy. We just know that it's harder to make those trade flows happen when the regulatory environment is not supportive. So we have been aware that the services that we offer, in fact, digitize and formalize to a degree the cash transactions that were already happening cross-border. So we see our services facilitating free trade, facilitating cross-border integration, regional integration, and we celebrate any regulatory embrace of regional trade within Africa.
How will this change impact your role as a director?
I think, it's hard to say what the impact will be in my role. I mean, my role is to empower my team in Southern and East Africa.
And sorry for interjecting,
sure.
But by your role as a managing director for Southern and East Africa, it is in line with rebranding. So is it impacting your role as a managing director at Onafriq?
No, I think part of what my role entails is empowering my team to connect with partners and to grow our business. And invariably part of that is telling our story as a company. So changing the name does require, retelling the story, re-explaining who we are. But I think, frankly, the new name is a much more understandable and cleaner embodiment of our offering. Whereas what we had previously as MFS Africa, we also had grown via acquisition over the years. So we had several other offerings that we tended to refer to by the names of the previous companies that we'd acquired. And so it's a nice, if you will, clean start to say now we're all Onafriq. All of the different services that we offer are under Onafriq. So it doesn't impact my role except insofar as we explain our offering to partners as part of everyday business.
What are the future plans for Onafriq in terms of partnerships with mobile network operations and expansion into new markets?
So I think I'm quite proud to say that we have very few mobile network partners in Africa that we have not partnered with. Of course, there's always growth that's possible with those partnerships. So we have, for instance, been partners with Safaricom since I think 2015, I want to say, and the services that we can offer with Safaricom, with M-Pesa, can grow, in many directions in terms of new markets that we connect those Kenyan consumers and businesses to, and also use cases. So we're always evolving the use case and offering and expanding what our APIs can do and to whom we can connect our different partners. So there are new markets that we've expanded to recently. So we've very recently launched service to Eswatini and to Ethiopia. And there are still a few markets in Africa where we may have only one partner, or we have only a mobile network operator, but not yet a banking partner. So there's always growth and expansion to be done. However, I think we're quite clearly the largest in terms of reach of African countries and number of partners when it comes to digital payment providers. Where I worked in Benin and Senegal, did a year of my studies in Senegal as well, worked also in Burkina and Morocco in those years, and then kind of pivoted to the business world via a stint in business school and then in consulting, which brought me to South Africa. My work in South Africa brought me to Cameroon, which brought me very serendipitously to meet with Dare Okuju, the founder of Onafriq. So since joining the company in early 2014, like I said, I've had a variety of roles. We've recently focused our structure much more on regional organization, and so I see my role here as being part of that evolution and that change.
How does Onafriq plan to continue the growth of commercial partnerships with mobile network operators?
So we will continue to grow those partnerships by offering those mobile network operators more and more services and connections. So we can connect the mobile network operators that we've been partnered with for many years. We can connect them to new markets. We can connect them to China. We can connect them to North America, to Europe, to the Middle East. And that's been part of our offering for some time, although we continue to grow the network. And the nice thing about a network business, which ours is there's a kind of an exponential effect. So every new partner that we sign brings value to even to partners that we've had on board for many, many years.
Are there any new market or sectors that Onafriq is planning to venture into?
So in terms of new markets, I did mention that we've recently launched in Eswatini and Ethiopia. We are really focusing on the depth, if you will, of our offering, and maybe less so on the breadth currently. So we have quite a vast footprint, and now what we're trying to do is make sure that in those markets where we're present, we have the lowest latency, the highest success rates, the most robust offering when it comes to different options for termination of transactions, different options for whether it's a merchant or a money transfer operator. So really trying to strengthen and densify the offering in the markets where we're already present. So Onafriq powers transactions in about 40 African markets today. We have offices in about 8 countries in Africa, as well as offices outside of the continent. But the services that we power in those 40 markets are through partnerships with, as you mentioned, mobile network operators, cash pickup networks, banks, etc.
Somebody out there wants to start a business. Words of wisdom?
I think the biggest lesson from my 9-something years at now Onafriq is
9-something.
9-something. It'll be 10 in February, which still feels far off.
Okay.
I think the biggest lesson is to take a long view and not to focus on the short-term goals of the next press release, the next contract signature, the next announcement, but really to focus on the long-term goal and to evaluate the actions and the setbacks that you face day to day in light of that long-term goal. And I think anyone who's been through an entrepreneurial journey will relate to the ups and downs and the roller coaster. It's certainly a much rockier and dramatic path than, say, a corporate approach. But I think that the lows may be lower, but the highs are also much higher. And it can be it's very exciting to build something new. So my advice would be to take the long view, and both in terms of the contextualizing the low points, but also humility in the high points, to know that this is a high point today, but in the long view, maybe not to not get too excited about those short-term victories either. Something I've said which has become a bit of a company mantra, which is we're in the business of making borders matter less. Which, when you take that to heart, it brings perspective to what you're doing. That somebody sitting on one side of an imaginary line drawn by colonial powers, years ago, should not be restricted in their ability to send money home, to make a transaction, to buy something for their kids, to make an investment, based on just simply, where they sit on a map. So making borders matter less is actually really core to our approach and to what has kept us going through that entrepreneurial journey.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you so much.